Just a note that in this episode, we reference some sensitive subjects related to mental health. Please use your discretion when listening.
I think that was the only time in my life that I've literally given something absolutely everything I had to the point where I passed out. You got to just keep swimming.
Welcome or welcome back to the XO Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Rishma Walji, former naturopathic doctor and PhD turned storyteller, podcaster, speaker, and scientific creative. I spend my time researching, connecting with my community, and sharing actionable ways to help you live your own version of an extraordinary XO life. People often ask me, how did you do that? Leave your job, learn to swim as an adult, build a relationship through massive stress, try something totally new, etc. After my own personal experiences, realizing how short life is, and after 20 years of helping patients make really tough decisions about their life and their health and their relationships and their futures, now when people ask me how I did that or how they can do something out of the box, or that feels challenging, I can now say I'm working on a framework to help with that, because I realize that we're not always in a place where we know where to start, and we're not always in a place where we know what to do. So if you're looking for a change in your life, if you're looking to be intentional with your life choices, start with my free quiz. It helps you figure out where you might be stuck or missing something, and people have said that it has brought them a lot of clarity about their approach and given them a lot to think about. You can find it at livingxo.com/quiz. Speaking of how did you do that, I am so excited to bring you today's episode. I am talking with Jason Kloss. He's doing something big for a great cause, and I really want to make sure that his story is shared with you. It's inspiring, it'll make your jaw drop, and I'm sure you'll be drawn to his friendly and down-to-earth style like I was. I hope if you're listening to this that you'll consider supporting him too for all that he's doing.
I'm Jason Kloss. I live in Paris, Ontario. I'm an entrepreneur, a husband, and a dad to a 5-year-old daughter who's just amazing. And that's probably my favorite job.
Jason is gearing up to swim across Lake Ontario this summer.
I'll be swimming across Lake Ontario August 11th through to August 12th. It's 51 kilometers, should take me around 20 hours to complete. I will be finishing in downtown Toronto, starting at Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Lake Ontario is one of the world's most difficult marathon swims. The distance, the currents, the unpredictable weather make it a world-class challenge. In 1974, a 17-year-old competitive swimmer attempted the swim, but the boat supporting him had a problem with its motor, so he ended up continuing on his own, and he was never seen again. So since then, the Solo Swims of Ontario, SSO, it's an organization that was built because of this, now enforces rules for safety and also rules that must be followed in order for the swim to count as a complete swim. So Jason isn't allowed to wear a wetsuit or have any flippers. He's not allowed to touch anyone during the swim, or else he gets disqualified. Although he will have a boat and people watching him and keeping an eye on him.
You're swimming nonstop, like to eat and drink, you tread water. They hand you, water on the end of a stick or food on the end of a stick. You drink it back and then you keep going. Yeah, there's no breaks. Your break is treading water, which is still swimming.
This is one of those epic accomplishments, something that requires dedication and training and determination. Where did this idea come from?
As a younger kid, joined a swim team, started swimming competitively, and just really took a liking for it at a young age. There's this ability to kind of be solo in the sport, but also there's a lot of camaraderie and team involvement as well too. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And yeah, I did that as a young kid up until I was 13, going into high school, and then became too cool to swim, or so I thought.
Actually, swimming was a big part of Jason's life because he grew up hearing about his grandfather swimming across Lake Huron.
My grandfather was 50 at the time when he swam across Lake Huron. He wanted to be the oldest person to swim across the English Channel, but realized I think he'd have to wait 20 or 30 years to do that. And would have said he didn't want to wait that long. So he decided to swim across Lake Huron and be the oldest person to accomplish that at 50 years old.
Of course, it wasn't an easy swim.
He did it in 36 hours. So it took a significant amount of time to do the crossing. He had 10, 12-foot swells through a good part of the night. So it was, one stroke forward, push you back 2 strokes kind of journey. But at the end of the day, he made it literally crawling out of the lake. We've got some video of that. Back when it was still on tape, him crawling out of Lake Huron and everybody singing "Happy Birthday" to him because he ended on his 50th birthday.
Doing a swim like that is admirable on its own, and then to do it when you're 50, to train and raise money and bring your family along for the journey, I think that is so inspiring. What was the motivation behind your grandfather's swim?
Yeah, so he used to smoke and drink and, wasn't necessarily the healthiest of people, I think, in his mind, and started to swim to get it back into shape. And then he raised money, I believe, for a local library that they were building at the time. And then, yeah, just to, I guess, show that he can do it.
As someone who was impacted very deeply by my relationship with my grandparents, I can see how that would stick with you in your heart.
From a young age, I just remember always, admiring what he was able to do, and something that I had always said that I wanted to do. And I don't know if it was just out of admiration of my grandfather's accomplishment or trying to find that connection with him, but something, spoke to me in knowing that he had done it and wanting to do it myself. And yeah, that's, I guess the spark.
This isn't actually Jason's first time doing this. After giving up swimming when he was a teenager, he picked it up again about a decade later to swim across Lake Huron, like his grandfather.
I was 23 and decided, let's do this thing that I've always wanted to do, which was swim across Lake Huron in honor of my grandfather's swim, and started training and didn't tell a lot of people, but just kind of poked away at it one day at a time. And my first time in was one lap, and then kind of felt a little dejected that I was exhausted after, this one lap in the pool, but cut myself some slack and just said, let's go back and just swim one extra lap every day and see what we can do. And that's what I did, and just found my groove again in the pool, and rediscovered, I guess, that love for swimming and what it meant to me. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated about why people do things, what drives them, what inspires them, what motivates them. Swimming across a lake is no small thing, even when you're starting small with training one lap at a time. What was that turning point of where, you wanted to go through with it?
Yeah, it was, probably, 10 years. I think it was the gap between stopping swimming and then really starting again. And I think I was just this point in my life where I was young. I felt like I was really old at the time, but I was 23 years old. I was trying to find my place in the workforce, get that job that I thought that I so deserved and wanted, but kept getting that rejection of, you don't have enough experience, or you're too young, or the list goes on and on. And rather than, get caught up in that, I, thought about something that I could control and could do and always wanted to do, which was swim across Lake Huron, and kind of made that commitment to myself without telling many people. and started training.
What's amazing is that Jason felt like he was really starting from scratch. He hadn't been swimming for most of his adult life. He didn't have his endurance at first, but what he did have was a clear desire to do it.
That was a good 10-year break between. And to me, that was part of what made it interesting, is that I wasn't an elite swimmer or a competitive swimmer at that point in time, and just really wanted to drive that message that if you want to do something, you can do it. Doesn't matter how old you are or what your ability is. If you want it, it can be done. If you don't want it, then you're not going to do it.
Now you're probably thinking, wow, what an incredible journey to swim across an entire lake. And I mean, that's what I was thinking. But it got more incredible as I learned what it actually took to cross.
Swam Lake Huron, so it was a 65-kilometer swim from Port Sanilac, Michigan to Grand Bend, Ontario. Leading up to the swim, trained for about 11 months. The longest swim I had done before was 9 hours. I don't know what the distance was on it, because at that time I didn't have a watch that could track my distance. But it probably would have been close to half the distance, so probably around 30K. And yeah, I can remember jumping into the lake in Port Sanilac to start the swim, and the first half went probably better than it ever could have. Lake conditions were nice. The lake was relatively calm. I felt great, and I got done half of the swim in 10 hours. Everything seemed like it was going my way, and I was like super confident at that point. This is easy. Let's keep going.
Remember, he has to keep swimming through the night with no stops, no leaning on the boat. He can't even touch the boat. He can't stop to eat unless he's eating while treading water.
And then the next thing that I remember is night hitting, starting to chatter my teeth, like I was shivering. Started to get extremely cold. I'm exhausted now. I'm tired. I'm now been swimming for 12, 13 plus hours. There's no sunlight. There's no real light. Everything's dark. I can kind of see the surrounding boats in and around me. I can see the light on the mast of the sailboat that's leading the way. I remember that being like, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into? And then through the night, it just kept getting worse, from falling asleep. So there was times where I was, mid-stroke, similar to like driving and you're really, really tired and you start doing that head bobs, like where your eyes are closing and you're like, okay, stay awake. I was doing that, where at certain points I actually fell asleep and woke up underwater. And it was just, you wake up and it's like this like flash of white. Everything just went white, and you wake up, you're underwater, you pull yourself up and keep going.
Jason started getting disoriented, even confused.
To other times where I was convinced I could have a nap. So I'm talking to the crew and just telling them it's okay. I'm going to just have a quick nap here. I'm going to lay on my back. They're like, no, you can't do that. You'll sink. And I was convinced that it was okay. I'm like, no, don't worry. Roll on my back. The only way that they could see me was because I had a glow stick in the back of my cap. And now they lost sight of me. They couldn't see me anymore. I fell asleep, woke up underwater, just kept going, realized they were right. I can't have a nap. Kept pushing through.
So Jason manages to stay awake. And then he gets sick.
So I puked probably for about 30 minutes throughout the swim at different times. Worse than any time I've been sick in the past. Like it was really bad.
In the meantime, Jason's brother and a friend were on a boat not far away.
A couple 100 meters out.
And they can hear someone puking, but they don't know who it is.
They just start laughing like, oh, who's getting sick?
And then they realize.
They're like, it's Jason. They realized, oh crap, this is not good.
Now, I know the end of this story, but at this point I'm like, what did they do? Did they pull you out? Did you climb into the boat? How are you still swimming?
I never had a moment where I thought I was going to quit. Like there was never I never once said I need to get out. I attribute that to the confidence and the clear message the entire time through training. Anytime somebody asked me, what if you don't make it? My response was always, there's no way if I'm going to make it. Right. I think that's what was kind of in my brain, even when my brain wasn't fully present there, as just like a response that had to happen. I would keep going and I pushed through.
I don't know how it's possible to think clearly for that long while you're in the water. You're literally just swimming with nothing to listen to but the sound of the water and your own thoughts. Jason said eventually he wasn't thinking clearly at all. At one point, he started hallucinating.
I thought at one point that the crew was taking me in circles because I was swimming too fast. I was like, no, you guys are just taking me the wrong way because I'm swimming the lake too fast and you don't want me to finish too early. And I'm literally getting mad at the crew for taking me in circles. And they're like, just please trust us. We're not taking in circles. Follow the boat. I remember flashes of it and times where I literally had temper tantrums because they brought me the wrong granola bar. I had asked for like some solid foods because a lot of what I ate was liquids. And I wanted something solid. And I said a granola bar. They brought me, I don't know, I think it had like cranberries in it or something. In my head, I wanted a chocolate chip granola bar and they brought me the wrong kind. And I just remember throwing it into the lake and being like, I wanted a chocolate chip granola bar. Like a 5-year-old having a temper tantrum.
He laughs, but I gotta say, he's the one swimming. They should bring every single granola bar option that exists so that he can eat whatever he wants. And just when you think it can't get any worse.
At one point, my shoulder popped. I remember that.
So now he's swimming on no sleep after getting sick, hallucinating, and he's in pain.
Once daylight came up, and again, I was just like, okay, just keep going. And eventually the pain goes away and you swim through it. And then when the sun was fully up, you see the shoreline, right? So it looks closer than it is. And I had this like kick of adrenaline that came into me.
So now Jason's thinking, I'm there. I did it. I can see the shore.
And I just started sprinting and like swimming as fast as I could. Because I in my head, I'm like, I'm super close. I'm going to be done this in like 15 minutes.
He was wrong.
I don't know what I was thinking, but one of the Zodiacs, the smaller boats, started speeding up beside me and they're screaming at me. So I stopped, tread water. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we're almost there. I can see the shore. They're like, no. Like, we're still like 6 to 9 hours away. And it was like this super dejecting moment of like, oh crap, we're not even close.
I just can't imagine. Just think about how many times you have felt disappointed in your life when you're expecting something and then it goes wrong. And I'm just thinking, multiply that by, I don't know, 100, 1,000. What do you do?
You got to just keep swimming.
We talked a bit about the mindset that goes into something intense like this. When you're an athlete or doing something really active, of course, there's a physical fatigue that comes, but there's also mental fatigue. And it can be a number of things that impact you, especially during an endurance activity. You want to give up, you want to stop, you can start doubting yourself. And there's, of course, value in knowing when you need to stop so that you don't hurt yourself. But there's also value in building mental toughness and grit, perseverance, dedication, ambition. In Jason's case, in order to accomplish such a big goal, he will need to build up his mental confidence, where at some point in the water, no matter how exhausted he is, he's going to have to dig really, really deep and find a way to stay motivated and to tap into a feeling of some sort of reserve of energy and drive so that he can get to the end.
But yeah, I did something right in the sense of giving my brain that response of I'm going to do it. I learned that really quickly to not think about the 65-kilometer swim across Lake Huron, right? I had to think about swimming one lap, and then it was swimming one extra lap. And, you know, it might seem like I'm limiting myself and my expectations of what I can do, but I know that one extra lap is a achievable goal to do in the pool at the skill set that I was at, and I would end up doubling what I did, right? So I went from 1 lap to 10 laps and then 10 laps to 20. So I think setting realistic goals for yourself throughout the journey, and don't focus on that 65 kilometers, focus on the just getting in the pool, right? Let's start with what we've got, because you can't train to swim 65 kilometers. Like you can't, like in most ways, like it's just not something that you can do. Definitely not in a pool. All you can do is condition your body to be able to be fit enough to hopefully do it. And then the bigger part is the mental aspect, is getting yourself into a mindset of, I'm going to do this, which is also this fine line of arrogance and cockiness almost, right? Because when people ask me the question, then, what if you don't make it? I would have to respond and say, there's no if, I'm going to make it, right? Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I know, that there could be a bad storm, or I could get really sick, or all of these other things could come into place that are out of my control and could prevent me from making it across. But I have to be confident in my ability to be able to do it, and have that mindset, so that in those moments of mental weakness during the swim, it's like second nature, right? Your brain starts to say, I need to stop, but then you just turn that off real quick and just say, no, keep going. And I don't know where that necessarily came from, but I started to recognize that very, very early on, that I needed to visualize the goal and be 100% confident in my ability to do it, while still knowing that there was a risk that I might not do it. But as long as I put my best effort in and did everything I could, then I had succeeded. So
after all that, Jason finally made it to shore. He finished the swim across Lake Huron. He had a crowd of people cheering him on, including his grandfather.
My grandpa ultimately became my coach, and on the weekends, he had a little boat that he had bought with an electric motor, and he would troll alongside me in the open water, for literally hours every Saturday and Sunday, watching me swim, telling me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. I can still hear, him in the back of my head saying, keep on kicking, because I have lazy feet when I swim. So
pick up the feet. Okay, Jay, pick up the feet. Pick up the feet a bit.
There is always that, and I still hear it today when I'm training for this one, is that is my grandfather kind of telling me to keep on going.
Pick up the feet. Okay, Jay, pick up the feet. Pick up the feet a bit.
I got to the shore, and I remember somebody telling me, once you get close and you're about to finish, kick like you've never kicked before, because you're going to have no blood in your legs, and if you try to stand up, you're going to fall over. So I remember that coming back to me, and so I kicked as hard as I could, walked out of the water, kind of like Bambi did, kind of fumbling a little bit. Went to the paramedics, got checked out. Everything seemed okay. Went to do an interview in front of the lake with one of the news crews that was there, and I passed out, like literally standing up. They asked me the first question, I went to answer it, and I went down like a domino. Like I was done. Luckily, my dad and buddy Charles was there. They caught me, put me on the stretcher, got taken away to the ambulance, pumped full of fluids, and then came back for my dinner or food that I wanted at the end of the swim, which was spaghetti and meatballs. And got to enjoy the moment. But I think that was the only time in my life that I've literally given something absolutely everything I had, to the point where I passed out.
I'm wondering if it's one of those things like labor. You get pregnant, you have this kid, it's like so intense, your body changes, it feels like intense and crazy. And then somehow after a while, you just forget all the hard parts and eventually you want to have more kids. I wonder if it's kind of like that because Jason, another, I don't know, more than a decade later, is ready to do this all over again. Somehow we override the challenges in our mind so that we can focus on the positives.
I was faster than my grandpa. I beat him. He was 36 hours. I was 26 hours and 3 minutes.
Jason admits to being just a tiny bit competitive. I actually think it's a necessary part of his determination.
I'm extremely competitive. I don't want to say unhealthy competitiveness in me because I can lose and I'll shake somebody's hand and be good with it. But like even when I'm swimming in the pool in the morning and I'm, whatever, 5 kilometers in and then somebody else jumps in and is doing sprints and they start to pass me, I turn it on and I sprint. And I know that it's stupid to do it, but my brain just like kicks in and is like, you're not going to beat me.
But this time, this swim, it's a different experience.
I remember when I was younger thinking that, 50 seemed so ancient. And now where I'm at, I'm like, 50 doesn't actually seem that old. Like it's, you're still pretty young at 50 years old. So, but it's interesting how perspective changes as we also age. Yeah.
This time, as he's training, he's married, he has a daughter. And again, he had stopped swimming for a while because, well, life happened.
Getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the pool in the middle of winter when it's freezing cold, you have to scrape the ice off your window. I have to convince myself and keep telling my mind to shut up, right? And do it. All my goal is every morning that I swim is to get in the pool, right? I don't think about it like I'm going to swim 5 kilometers today. I just have to jump in the pool. And there's mornings where I literally stand on the edge of the pool and I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And then I just jump in and then I start going and I just keep going. Like, this morning is a perfect example. I jumped in the pool and I started swimming and it felt like I was swimming for an hour. And then I looked at my watch, which is tracking my distance and everything like that. And it was 900 meters, right? And it had felt like I had swam like 3K. And I was just a little bit dejected. But then you've got to talk yourself, okay, just keep going, keep pushing. And then, I swam a little bit more and it felt again like I had another kilometer and looked at my watch and it was another 300 meters. Like it is some mornings your brain is just in this fog, but you've just got to push past it. And it's in those moments that I like to think of that as kind of my mental training, right? To prepare me for the big thing. If I can't get past those little ones, then what am I going to do when I'm, falling asleep in the middle of the lake or throwing up in the middle of the lake to get past those moments?
Well, this goal of swimming across a lake is one that I can completely admire. It's not one that I can personally relate to, but when I listen to his experience, I realize that people who do hard things are normal people with the drive and determination to do them. And if you think about it, we've all done hard things, different things, hard in different ways. And when you think about something that you've been through, it's probably prepared you for harder things, maybe physically, but also mentally. And his perspective is absolutely one that I can relate to, especially that you just have to want it. You have to put in the time and effort because when you do, when you set your mind to it, you're actually capable of much more than you realize.
I know after I swim, I am going to feel amazing for the rest of the day, right? So like I know the reward, but I would say almost every single morning that my alarm goes off, I have to convince myself to roll out of bed, get dressed, get my stuff and I'll do little things like prepare my swim bag, prepare my, electrolytes, whatever for the swim. But even still, I know what the reward is, and I still have to like struggle. So yeah, I think it's this expectation that it comes easier once you get into this habit, that it's still easy. No, it's a constant battle, even knowing what the result is or what the reward is at the end of it, which is feeling amazing, feeling healthy, feeling energized. Like I have more energy after a 5K swim than I do after 3 coffees. But 5:30 in the morning, Jason doesn't care. He's like, no, but like you're not feeling super great. It's really cold out, or it's dark out, or I've got a busy day for work today. Like, you know what? I'll do it next week. It's just very easy to come up with the excuses why not to do it.
But he still does it. He still wakes up. He still gets to the pool.
I don't know if I know exactly what it is. I think part of it is that I know if I don't, then I'm not going to make it across the lake at the end of the day. So I've made that commitment. So I don't, and that's part of how I hold myself accountable is I've now told call it the world, that I'm going to be swimming across Lake Ontario, but that's my accountability partner, right? That's like, okay, I said that I'm going to do this. Now I have to put in the time and the effort. I'm going to have bad days. I'm going to have bad weeks. I'm going to have bad months, maybe even. But as long as I put in the right amount of work more times than I don't, I'm going to be okay.
But this time he's older than he was. He's got a lot more going on in life.
Yeah, I'm almost 12 years older. So I feel like I just take these, decade-long breaks, and then I decide to do something crazy again. I can feel it in my body a lot more, doing the longer swims in the pool. I'm definitely pushing myself a lot harder in the pool swims right now, knowing that, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm definitely swimming more than I was for the last swim. And this one is a shorter distance. So it's 51 kilometers instead of 65, but this time I'm doing it without a wetsuit. So there's that aspect. And then I don't know if it's helpful that I know what to expect or not helpful to know what to expect. And then there's the other part that's kind of playing in the back of my mind is, you did it once. If you don't make it this time, like, does that take away from what you did last time? Like there's all these things that now are almost feel like they're at risk of, okay, I'm taking a gamble. Like I showed that I could do it and I did it. And now I'm going to, kind of gamble that all away and put this out on the table that I'm going to swim another lake and maybe not make it, right? So I think that's there.
There's something else that makes it harder for him this time around. He's not just focusing on swimming. He's also running his business. He's a dad. He's a husband. Not only is his training impacted, but his goals are impacted. And the fear, the risk is higher.
My thing to the crew last time was, don't pull me out of the water unless I'm dead. This time I'm changing it slightly because I'm a father now. I've said, you don't pull me out of the lake until I'm almost dead.
Even though there's a risk, Jason has made sure that there's also reward, one that's close to his heart. He's decided to raise money for CAMH Foundation, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health.
Specifically for mental health research and Alzheimer's and dementia research within CAMH. My grandfather, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, died of dementia.
Jason's grandfather, Dick Kloss, passed away when he was 80 years old. Obviously, it hit Jason really hard.
My grandfather held a very close place in my life as a kid. I worked at his campground that they owned for many years. He was always a second father figure to me, and a lot of the reason why I have the drive and the determination that I have today. So watching him go through dementia and Alzheimer's, like fighting that and him kind of dying twice almost, right? Like, you die when you lose your memory and hearing that he can't remember who I am or who my dad is or who my daughter is.
And a few other things happened around the same time.
And then with COVID and everything like that, being trapped inside, not able to swim, not able to work out, all of these things happening from a mental health perspective for myself.
And then, about a year ago, his friend died by suicide.
Mike, he was always the life of the party. Like any time that I was over at a friend's house and he was there, like he was just this like ray of light and just like you would never expect that he was going through anything. I know his close friends that knew him very well would have known that maybe he was going through this battle, but outwardly you would never know it. And I think when I heard that news, it was almost this like trigger in me where I also saw a little bit of me in Mike in that way, where sometimes we put on this face of strength and happiness and like I can do anything, and almost out of necessity because that's what the world expects of us. If I can raise awareness enough to help even one person to know that they can talk about it, especially for men, I find too, there's more challenges for men to talk about mental health and struggles and things like that. And I think just that alone is enough if we can help one person. And I think it goes, they play hand in hand with each other with dementia, because it's not just the people that die of dementia, but also the family members that are dealing with it. Now they're going through their own mental health struggles of trying to cope with the loss of their family and trying to keep everything going.
Swimming is something that Jason came back to because it helped him cope with his stress.
I just needed to do something for myself to kind of kick myself back into my groove. So initially I started just to swim and get back into shape, but it kind of turned into this. I kept hearing stories in the news about how mental health was affecting our children and all of these different things. And then I can't help but to look at my daughter and think like, there's going to come a time in her life where she's struggling with this. And like, I can't even imagine if she ever got to that point where she couldn't think that she could talk about it. And I was just doing enough laps in the pool and it was just kind of burning inside of me to do something about it. And I didn't know what I could do. And then I was like, I can swim across a lake, I guess.
When Jason decided to take this on, he knew it was something that he couldn't do alone. Fun fact, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard the lovely Avery, who is my fantastically talented audio designer.
I've apparently just made it my goal to be in as many episodes of XO Conversations as possible.
She's made cameo appearances several times on the podcast, and she interviewed me at the end of season 1 for a really behind-the-scenes episode. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. Well, Jason is her husband, and swimming has been such a big part of Jason's life that, in fact, he met Avery because of his first swim years ago across Lake Huron.
I met my wife through my first swim. So she was a reporter at the time. She wasn't involved with the actual swim itself, but afterwards, after the swim was done, I went in to do an interview at a radio station she had just started working at. She had opened the door for me. Again, wasn't the person I was interviewing with. She had just kind of came and let me in. She was in the news department.
It was the weekend shift and people never really came in during the weekend. And there was only really 2 of us there. So I opened the door and he didn't say anything. And I was like, hey, I'm Avery. And he shook my hand and said, hey, I'm Jason. And I was like, you here for Pete? And he was like, yeah. And that was the extent of it.
And I did my interview.
And so for radio banter reasons, I'm supposed to be listening to the radio. But I can't write and hear sound at the same time. So I was writing the news. I had it down. I didn't hear any of his interview. And then Pete brought him by the newsroom and was like, oh, hey, the swimmer's leaving, which meant nothing to me at the time. And so there was like this big, long, awkward pause. And I was like, okay, bye.
I guess there was this awkward encounter with her and the DJ that was there where he's like, oh, you didn't say congratulations. She's like, oh, who was that? And
he was like, oh, that was Jason Kloss. He just swam across Lake Huron, which I had covered in the news. I wasn't on the beach, but like it was written into the weekend before all of my newscasts where he was. I was watching the GPS of him swimming across the lake.
And then she felt obliged to reach out. I think it was Facebook Messenger at the time.
I wouldn't say I felt obliged, but I felt embarrassed. And also he was cute.
And said, congrats. Sorry, I didn't say something earlier. Anyways, we got talking, went out on a few dates, and, here we are. I'm going to get this wrong, but I guess 12 years later, almost. Yeah. So.
Yeah, he's right. It was 12 years ago.
And I just remember thinking there was something special about her. And yeah, sure enough, I was right. And she is an extremely special human. And then we got married a few years later, and a few years after that had a kiddo, and now she's been around for 5 years. So
Hi, my name is Audie, and I'm 5 years old. My daddy is swimming across Lake Ontario. Go, Daddy, go! Go, Daddy, go! Go, Daddy, go!
This swim, it's a family effort.
Go, Daddy, go!
Jason is gearing up for a great cause. He's putting himself out there, literally, and his family is behind him.
Do you think that Daddy can get all the way across Lake Ontario?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How sure?
More sure than anything.
Before I committed to this, that was the one thing I had to make sure is that, she was okay with the time commitment and what would be involved in me doing it. And she was, 100% on board. I think it still terrifies her a little bit that I'm, going to be out in the middle of a body of water through the night and things like that. But again, it's an important thing to do. She gets that, and now Audie, my daughter, is old enough to, I think, recognize the importance of doing something that you believe in and standing behind a cause that you believe in too. So I'm hoping that maybe she takes something away from it all too. And it's just it's also a little riskier this time because now there is also the family component of it.
Doing this kind of thing is much harder when you're also juggling life and responsibilities.
I think the family piece pulls at me a little bit differently though when I'm training, because sometimes there'll be something going on and I'll like want to be there for when Audie's going to school or something like that, and it's like there's that piece that kind of pulls at me a little bit too, where it's like this conflict or this division of being the best father that I can be, but also still being able to be the best swimmer I guess I can be and staying true to my commitment. There's definitely a shift. And I don't know if it's just I am starting to recognize what's really important, and that if something happens that I don't make it across the lake, that it's not the end of the world. But then there's also the other side of me that thinks that it is. So it's, again, that battle back and forth.
It doesn't matter if you're swimming across a lake or running a 10K or just trying to go for a walk around the block. There's always something to juggle, something to challenge you. And this conversation for me is a lesson in determination. When you set your mind to something, you're going to come up against struggles and challenges. But if we can figure out what they are, we can find ways to move through them.
And I think that's the takeaway that I like to get out of all of that is that I think we often tell ourselves that we can't do something. And I think when somebody comes to me and asks about the swim and is like, oh, I could never do that. It's like, well, no, you could, you just don't want to, right? Like the only reason I can do it is because I want to do it. There's a reason behind the doing it. Mental health right now is a big one. And then also the passing of my grandfather, that's another part. And then just started swimming again to get back into shape and because it is very therapeutic for me to be in the pool. And then it just got to a point where I was again built up to doing the amount that I was doing in the pool to be able to do the swim again, and everything else that had transpired was like, you know what, that's the why I want to do it. I'm now able to do it again.
What drives you? What inspires you? What do you want to work towards? What do you want badly enough that you're willing to do what it takes, even when it's challenging?
I don't want to run 100 kilometers, so I'm not going to, right? Like, I can swim 65, but I will not run 10. And that's just because I don't like running. Could I? Yeah, if I wanted to, but I don't want to, so I'm not going to. And I don't know if that helps kind of clarify that, but is finding that that need or that desire to do something and the truly wanting it. Because if you don't have the I hate using the word passion, but that want to do it or that passion to do it, then you're probably not going to do it. And if there is a cause that is important to you, that's going to keep you motivated and going throughout it.
If you're listening to this episode before August 11th, 2023, please consider supporting Jason at klosstocross.com. That's KLOSS, the number 2, CROSS.com, Kloss to Cross. I'll link it in the episode notes. If you're listening to this after that date, you can still donate to CAMH or any other cause that's important to you in support of his swim. Hopefully, he's inspired you to make a difference for others in any way that you can. At the time of this recording, he's still looking for corporate sponsors, individual donations, and even a sailboat, if you have one, to lead the swim. Just reach out on his website, klosstocross.com. Please remember to share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. As always, you can find all of my resources on the website livingxo.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you so much.